The unexpected harvest, the autumn breeze, carried the scent of fallen leaves through the open windows of the University Medical Center. Dr. Sarah Chen adjusted her lab coat and checked her watch. She had exactly 30 minutes before her next research session, just enough time to participate in the annual blood drive. As a biomedical researcher specializing in genetic markers, she understood the importance of blood donation better than most people. The donation center buzzed with activity. Students, faculty, and staff moved through the process with practiced efficiency. Sarah recognized several colleagues from the biology department, all doing their civic duty. She settled into the donor chair, rolling up her sleeve while the technician prepared the equipment. "First time donating?" asked the technician, a woman with kind eyes and an unusual accent Sarah couldn't place. "No, I donate regularly," Sarah replied, watching the needle slide into her vein. "I'm a researcher here, so I know how important this is." The technician smiled, but something in her expression seemed oddly intense. "Your blood type is quite rare, Dr. Chen. A B negative with some unusual markers we've been tracking." Sarah frowned. She hadn't mentioned her name or blood type. "How did you know my blood type?" "I haven't filled out the forms yet." "We have your records from previous donations," the technician said smoothly, but her fingers moved over, unfamiliar. "Equipment that definitely wasn't standard blood bank technology. You're contributing to something much more important than you realize." A strange tingling sensation spread up Sarah's arm, different from the usual slight discomfort of blood donation. The room began to blur around the edges, and the sounds of the donation center grew distant and muffled. Sarah tried to speak, but her tongue felt heavy and unresponsive. "What's happening to me?" she managed to whisper. "Sleep now, Dr. Chen. When you wake up, everything will be explained." The world faded to black, and Sarah's last conscious thought was that this definitely wasn't a normal blood drive. Sarah awoke to the sensation of floating. Her body felt weightless, suspended in some kind of liquid that wasn't quite water. Panic shot through her as she realized she was breathing normally despite being submerged. The liquid was warm and had a faint blue glow that illuminated her. Surroundings Chi was in a cylindrical chamber made of what looked like crystalline material. Through the transparent walls, she could see a vast medical facility unlike anything on Earth. Beings in flowing robes moved between similar chambers, their faces hidden beneath hoods that seemed to shift and shimmer. With growing alarm, Sarah pressed her hands against the walls of her container. The liquid began to drain, and she felt herself being lowered onto a soft platform. The chamber opened with a soft hiss, and she stumbled forward, coughing up the strange fluid. "Welcome, Dr. Sarah Chen," said a voice that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. "Please do not be alarmed. You are safe." Sarah spun around, trying to locate the source of the voice. One of the robed figures approached, and as it drew closer, she could see beneath the hood. The face was humanoid, but clearly not human, with large, luminous eyes and skin that seemed to shimmer with its own inner light. "What is this place? What have you done to me?" Sarah demanded, her scientific training helping her maintain some composure despite the incredible situation. "You are aboard the medical vessel Synthesis," the being replied, its voice now clearly coming from a universal translator device. "I am Healer Zix of the Ethereal Collective. You have been brought here because your species possesses something we desperately need." "My species? You mean humans? Indeed, your genetic structure contains elements that may be the key to our survival." Zix gestured to the chambers around them. "We are a dying race, Dr. Chen. Our reproductive capabilities have been failing for centuries. Our scientists have searched the galaxy for compatible genetic material, and Earth humans represent our greatest hope. Sarah's mind raced. As a biomedical researcher, she understood the implications immediately. You're talking about genetic compatibility for reproduction. You want to use humans for breeding purposes. A crude but accurate assessment. However, we do not wish to harm your people. We seek a mutually beneficial arrangement by kidnapping us from blood drives. Sarah's voice rose with indignation. Zix's expression showed what might have been embarrassment. Our initial approach was perhaps too aggressive. We needed to study human genetic patterns quickly, and blood samples provided the most efficient method. Those with the most compatible markers were selected for further evaluation. How many humans have you taken? From your planet, 40 individuals over the past 6 months. All were selected for optimal genetic compatibility. Sarah felt sick. You're experimenting on people. This is unconscionable. We understand your distress, but please consider our perspective. My people have existed for over 50,000 years, but we will be extinct within a century if we cannot solve our reproductive crisis. Your species represents not just our salvation, but the continuation of knowledge and culture that spans millennia. Despite her anger, Sarah's scientific curiosity was piqued. What exactly is wrong with your reproductive system? Zix led her to a viewing area where other humans were visible in various stages of medical examination. Our genetic diversity has become critically limited. Inbreeding has caused widespread fertility problems, and our birth rate has dropped to near zero. We need fresh genetic material to revitalize our species. And you think human DNA is compatible? Not just compatible, but ideal. Your species has an unusual genetic flexibility that we believe can integrate with our own biological systems. The offspring would be hybrids, carrying the best traits of both species. Sarah observed the other humans in the facility. They appeared to be well treated, housed in comfortable quarters with access to entertainment and good food. None seemed to be in distress, but their freedom was clearly restricted. These people, they're prisoners, Sarah said. They are willing participants in a program that will save 2 species, Zix corrected, in exchange for their contribution. They receive advanced medical care, extended lifespans, and the opportunity to help establish colonies on worlds more advanced than Earth. Did they volunteer for this? Zix hesitated. They were selected for their genetic compatibility. Over time, most have come to understand the importance of their role. That's not the same as volunteering. Sarah's voice was firm. You can't just decide for people that they should participate in your breeding program, no matter how noble your intentions. Dr. Chen, I understand your perspective, but consider this. Your planet faces environmental collapse, resource depletion, and the constant threat of war. We offer selected humans the chance to be part of something greater, to help build a new civilization among the stars. Sarah was quiet for a long moment, processing everything she'd learned. As a scientist, she could appreciate the magnitude of the ethereal collective's crisis. As a human being, she was horrified by their methods. I want to see the other humans, she said finally. I want to talk to them. Of course, Dr. Martinez will escort you to the residential area. Another robed figure approached, and Sarah was surprised to see a human face beneath the hood. The woman appeared to be in her 30s, with kind eyes and a gentle smile. Sarah, I'm Dr. Alina Martinez. I was taken from a blood drive in Mexico City 3 months ago, she said in accented English. I know this is overwhelming, but I want you to understand that the situation is more complex than it first appears. As they walked through corridors that seemed to be grown rather than built, Alina explained her experience. I was angry at first, just like you, but as I learned more about their civilization and their crisis, I began to see this differently. You're defending them. I'm trying to find a solution that works for everyone. These beings aren't evil. Sarah, they're desperate. Their entire civilization is dying, and they're grasping at any hope for survival. They entered a large common area where other humans were gathered. Some were reading, others engaged in conversation, and a few were working on what appeared to be research projects. The atmosphere was surprisingly comfortable, more like a research facility than a prison. Asterisk. Everyone here was selected for genetic compatibility, Alina explained. But more importantly, we were chosen because we have specific skills that could help their civilization. You're here not just for your genes, but for your expertise in biomedical research. A man approached them, extending his hand to Sarah. I'm Dr. James Wright, formerly of Johns Hopkins. I've been here for 2 months, and I've been working on understanding the genetic compatibility issues. And what have you found? Sarah asked. It's fascinating, actually. Their genetic structure is remarkably similar to ours, but with some key differences that have led to their reproductive problems. With the right approach, we might be able to help them without requiring human breeding partners. What do you mean? I think we can use gene therapy to restore their natural reproductive capabilities. We wouldn't need to create hybrids, just repair the genetic damage that's accumulated over millennia. Sarah's mind began racing with possibilities. You're talking about genetic rehabilitation rather than crossbreeding. Exactly. But it would require detailed analysis of both human and ethereal genetic structures, and the cooperation of experts from both species. Alina nodded. This is what I've been working toward. Instead of being victims in their breeding program, we could be partners in solving their crisis. Have you proposed this to them? We've been building the scientific foundation first. We needed to prove that it was possible before presenting it as an alternative to their current plan. Sarah looked around at the other humans. How many people here are actually willing participants versus resigned captives? It's complicated, James admitted. Some have embraced the opportunity to be part of something historic. Others are still processing the situation. But everyone agrees that if we can find a better solution, we should pursue it. The key question, Alina said, is whether you're willing to help us try. Sarah considered everything she'd learned. The ethereal collective was facing extinction, and their current plan involved using humans as breeding stock. But there might be another way, one that preserved human dignity while still helping save an entire civilization. I'll need to examine their genetic data and run my own analysis, Sarah said. But yes, I'm willing to try to find a better solution. There's something else you should know, Alina said quietly. They're not just taking people randomly. They're specifically targeting scientists and researchers. They want to build a new civilization that combines the best of both species, not just genetically, but intellectually. A collaboration rather than exploitation, Sarah mused. That's what we're hoping for. But it will require convincing them that there's a better path than their current approach. As they continued the tour, Sarah met other humans who had been brought to the facility. Each had a story of initial fear and confusion, followed by gradual understanding of the situation. Some were genuinely excited about the possibilities, while others remained skeptical but willing to explore alternatives. The facility itself was Impressive, with technology far beyond anything on Earth. The Ethereal Collective had clearly achieved remarkable advances in medicine, genetics, and space travel. The idea of human ethereal cooperation was tantalizing from a scientific perspective, but Sarah couldn't shake the fundamental ethical problem. None of these people had chosen to be here. They'd been kidnapped, however well-intentioned the motives theirs. "One more thing you need to see," Alina said, leading her to a large observation deck. Through the transparent walls, Sarah could see the vast expanse of space and, in the distance, what appeared to be a planet. "That's their home world," Alina explained. "The population is down to less than 1 million, and most of them are elderly. They're literally watching their species die." Sarah stared at the planet, trying to imagine an entire civilization facing extinction. The scope of the crisis was staggering, and she began to understand why the Ethereal Collective had taken such desperate measures. "How long do they have?" she asked. "At current reproductive rates, maybe 50 years before they're functionally extinct. Less if they can't find a solution soon. And they believe human genetic material is their only hope." "So far, yes. But that's based on limited data. With proper research, we might find other options." Sarah made her decision. "I want to meet with their scientists. I want to see all their data and understand exactly what's happening to their species. If we're going to propose an alternative, we need to be absolutely certain it will work." Alina smiled. "I was hoping you'd say that. Healer Zix has been waiting for someone with your specific expertise to arrive." As they returned to the medical section, Sarah's mind was already working on the problem. The Ethereal Collective faced a genetic crisis that threatened their entire species. The solution they'd chosen violated human autonomy and dignity, but it came from a place of desperate necessity. The challenge was to find a way to help them that didn't require turning humans into breeding stock. It was a problem that would require all of her scientific knowledge and creativity to solve. But if they could pull it off, it would be more than just saving an alien species. It would be humanity's first step toward becoming a true partner in galactic civilization. The human solution the next morning. Sarah found herself in a laboratory that surpassed anything she'd ever seen on Earth. The equipment was elegant and intuitive, responding to thought as much as touch. Healer Zix had provided her with complete access to the Ethereal Collective's genetic databases, including detailed scans of their reproductive systems and the gradual deterioration patterns they'd observed over centuries. "Your species has been remarkably stable genetically," Sarah observed, studying the data streams that flowed through holographic displays. "But that stability has become a weakness." "Indeed," Zix replied, their translator conveying subtle emotional undertones. "We achieved genetic optimization millennia ago, but we eliminated the diversity that allows for adaptation and renewal." Sarah nodded, recognizing the pattern. "You've essentially bred yourselves into a genetic dead end. Your optimization removed the random variations that keep a species viable long term." "Precisely. And now our reproductive systems are failing because they lack the genetic flexibility to maintain themselves." Dr. Martinez and Dr. Wright joined them in the laboratory, both carrying data tablets with their own research findings. Over the past weeks, they'd been working on understanding the specific mechanisms of ethereal genetic failure. "The good news," James said, "is that the damage isn't irreversible. The genetic pathways for normal reproduction are still present. They've just been suppressed by accumulated mutations. Like a genetic switch that's been turned off," Alina added. If we can find a way to reactivate those pathways, we might be able to restore natural reproductive function. Sarah studied the comparative analysis between human and ethereal genetics. The similarities were striking, but the differences were equally important. The question is whether we can develop a targeted gene therapy that works with their existing biology. I've been working on that, James said, pulling up a complex molecular diagram. The key is in the regulatory sequences that control reproductive hormone production. In humans, these sequences have natural variation that allows for adaptation. In ethereals, they've become too rigid. So we need to introduce controlled variation without disrupting their optimized traits, Sarah concluded. Exactly. It's like tuning a musical instrument. We need to add just enough discord to create harmony. Zix watched their discussion with growing interest. You believe this approach could work? It's theoretically possible, Sarah replied, but it would require extensive testing and careful calibration. We'd need to create modified genetic sequences that can integrate with your existing systems, without causing rejection or harmful side effects. How long would such a process take? With human ethereal cooperation and access to your advanced medical technology, maybe 2 years to develop a working therapy, another year for testing and refinement. Zix's expression showed surprise. That is remarkably fast. Our own scientists estimated it would take decades to develop such a solution. That's because you've been thinking about the problem from within your own genetic paradigm, Alina explained. Human genetics offers a different perspective on the same biological processes. Sarah began sketching out a research plan. We'll need to start with computer modeling to identify the optimal genetic modifications. Then we'll need to test them in controlled laboratory conditions before moving to living subjects. And you would be willing to lead this research? Zix asked. Under certain conditions, Sarah replied firmly. First, all human subjects must be here voluntarily. No more kidnapping from blood drives or anywhere else. Second, we need full partnership status, not just cooperation. We're not lab assistants in this project, we're co-researchers. And third, James added, we need to establish communication with Earth. Our families and colleagues need to know we're alive and what we're working on. Zix was quiet for a long moment. These conditions represent a significant change in our approach. The collective will need to consider them carefully. Without these conditions, we can't proceed, Sarah said. You need to understand that humans value autonomy and dignity above almost everything else. Your current approach violates both, but surely the importance of saving our species justifies some compromise on these principles. Not from a human perspective, Alina replied. We're willing to help you, but not if it means sacrificing our fundamental values. Sarah could see the conflict in Zix's expression. The ethereal collective faced extinction, but the humans were demanding terms that would fundamentally change their carefully planned program. There's something else to consider, Sarah continued. If this gene therapy works, it doesn't just solve your immediate crisis. It opens the door to ongoing cooperation between our species. Earth humans have skills and perspectives that could benefit your civilization in many ways. And vice versa, James added. Your medical technology and scientific knowledge could help solve problems on Earth. This could be the beginning of a real partnership. You're proposing an alliance rather than a breeding program, Zix observed. We're proposing a future where both species thrive together, Sarah corrected, but it has to be based on mutual respect and voluntary cooperation. Over the following hours, Sarah and her colleagues presented their detailed research plan to the collective's leadership. The proposal was ambitious. Develop a gene therapy that could restore ethereal reproductive function while establishing a framework for ongoing human ethereal cooperation. The response was initially skeptical. Many ethereals had invested heavily in the breeding program and saw it as their only hope for survival. The idea of abandoning that approach for an unproven alternative was frightening, but Sarah had prepared for this resistance. She presented not just the scientific rationale, but also the long-term benefits of true partnership with humanity. Your species has achieved remarkable things, she told the assembled leadership, but you've also become isolated and inward-looking. Humans offer something you've lost: diversity, creativity, and the ability to adapt to new challenges. And what would humans gain from this partnership? Asked Elder Vorth, the collective's senior leader. Access to technologies that could solve our greatest challenges. Climate change, disease, resource scarcity, plus the opportunity to become part of a galactic civilization. You're offering to trade knowledge for knowledge rather than genetics. For genetics, Elder Vorth observed, we're offering to build something together that neither species could achieve alone. Sarah replied. The debate continued for hours, with various collective members raising concerns about the risks of abandoning their current approach, but gradually the logic of the human proposal began to win support. Finally, Elder Vorth called for a decision. We will approve a trial period of 1 year. If Dr. Chen and her team can demonstrate significant progress toward a genetic solution, we will commit fully to this partnership approach. And the human subjects currently in the program, Alina asked. Those who wish to remain and participate in the research may do so. Those who wish to return to Earth will be transported home with appropriate compensation and medical care. Sarah felt a surge of relief. It wasn't everything they'd asked for, but it was a significant step toward treating humans as partners rather than resources. Over the following months, Sarah threw herself into the research with an intensity that surprised even her. The challenge was unlike anything she'd faced before. Developing a genetic therapy for an alien species, using principles derived from human biology, the work was complicated by the need to understand not just ethereal genetics, but their entire biological system. Their reproductive processes were tied to complex biochemical cascades that had evolved over millions of years. Any therapeutic intervention had to work within that existing framework. But the breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Dr. Wright discovered that human genetic variations weren't just random mutations, but followed patterns that could be mathematically modeled and predicted. By applying these pattern recognition techniques to ethereal genetics, they could identify exactly where therapeutic modifications would be most effective. It's like finding the right key for a lock, James explained during one of their progress meetings. The human patterns show us which genetic sequences are most likely to restore function without causing harmful side effects. And the computer modeling confirms that these modifications should integrate seamlessly with existing ethereal biology. Alina added. Sarah reviewed the data with growing excitement. We're not just developing a therapy, we're creating a new model for genetic medicine that could be applied to other species as well, including humans, Zix observed. This research could help your own species overcome genetic diseases. That's the beauty of true partnership, Sarah replied. Both species benefit from the knowledge we create together. The first laboratory tests of the genetic therapy were conducted using ethereal cell cultures. The results exceeded everyone's expectations. The modified genetic sequences not only restored normal reproductive function, but actually enhanced it beyond baseline levels. The therapy doesn't just fix the problem, Sarah explained to the collective leadership. It creates a more robust reproductive system that should remain stable for generations. And the compatibility with existing ethereal biology, Elder asked. Perfect integration. The modified sequences work with your optimized traits rather than against them. When can we begin clinical trials? We're ready now, Sarah replied. We've identified 12 volunteer subjects who meet all the criteria. For the initial trial, the clinical trials were conducted with unprecedented care and monitoring. Each subject was closely observed for any signs of adverse reactions or unexpected effects. But the results were consistently positive. Within weeks, the volunteers showed significant improvements in reproductive hormone levels and cellular function. It's working even better than we hoped, Alina reported during the 6-month progress review. All trial subjects are showing restored reproductive capability, and several are already expecting offspring. Natural offspring, James emphasized. Not hybrids, but pure ethereal children conceived through normal reproductive processes. The success of the clinical trials transformed the relationship between humans and the ethereal collective. What had begun as a desperate kidnapping program had evolved into a genuine partnership that benefited both species. We owe you a debt that can never be fully repaid, Elder Vorth told Sarah during the formal announcement of the program's success. You have saved our species and given us hope for the future. You've given us something equally valuable, Sarah replied. The chance to be part of something bigger than ourselves. This is just the beginning of what we can accomplish together. As the story spread throughout the collective, Sarah found herself in an unexpected position. She was no longer just a kidnapped scientist, but a hero who had helped save an entire civilization. The irony wasn't lost on her. She'd come to give blood to help save lives, and ended up doing exactly that, just not in the way she'd ever imagined. The Ethereal Collective established a permanent research facility in Earth's solar system, staffed by volunteers from both species. The knowledge exchange programs that followed revolutionized science and medicine on both worlds. But for Sarah, the greatest satisfaction came from knowing that they'd found a solution that honored both species' values. The Ethereals had their future restored, and humanity had taken its first steps toward becoming a true galactic civilization. Years later, as Sarah stood in the observation deck of the Joint Research Station, watching Earth rise over the lunar horizon, she reflected on the journey that had brought them here. A simple blood donation had led to the greatest adventure of her life and the beginning of a new chapter in human history. The stars no longer seemed distant and unreachable. They were home to partners and friends, and the future held infinite possibilities for both species working together. It was, Sarah thought, exactly the kind of future worth fighting for. Asterisk.